Little Richard.
Yes, how you doing?
Hey, I'm fine, man. How are you doing?
Oh, everything is God is good to me.
Oh, well, it sure is good to talk to you. We've talked before, but it was many years ago when you were here in Tulsa once and got to say hello to you and a couple of autographs, and never have forgotten that show here in T-Town. But you're coming to Tulsa.
Yes.
On the 27th of March here at the historic Cain's Ballroom.
Yes.
You ever?
Nice ballroom?
Yeah, man, it's one of those historic old-time great...
Is that where they have all the rock shows?
Yeah, I have a lot of rock shows there.
Yes.
In fact, one of your good friends is going to be here just a couple of weeks after you. That's Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, Jerry Lee, that's my buddy.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, got a few things...
We're touring together in June over the United States.
Yeah, you guys are probably...
Tuckberry.
the biggest names in show business, almost. Oh, man. Well, hey, where are your travels taking you these days?
Oh, well, we go, we go all over the world. We'll be touring England in May. And we just, we tour all over. We tour constantly all over the world.
And England is a real good place for you, right?
Up here in Atlanta, Georgia, we had 55,000.
In what, the big stadium?
Yes, I was at the Georgia Dome.
What did they think of Little Richard in Atlanta?
They went mad. The little kids that hadn't seen, they went out of themselves.
Oh, boy. Well, hey, let's go back a little way. I'll ask you about your early career. RCA Victor, is it true that you won a talent show and got a recording contract as a teenager?
Recording contract with, if you was black, it was called Camden.
Yeah, Camden, yeah.
RCA Victor. I was on there in 1950, and I got on there out of Atlanta, Georgia. Was with Zena Sears. He was the head DJ of a radio station at Daddy Sears. Mm-hmm. And they got me on RCA Victor.
Okay, and then from there on to, I guess, Houston, Texas, and...
Peacock Records, John Roby.
Yeah.
With the Temple Toppers. And then from there, Special, they bought me from them.
All right, and that's where really all the really big hits began to happen.
Special.
Well, and we've always heard, a lot of us who are old enough to remember when Little Richard first began when we were kids, that there were some other words to your first hit, Tutti Frutti.
Tutti Frutti?
Yeah.
It was the way the rap singers talk today. It was smutty at the time, and we cleaned it up.
So there really ain't nothing new, is there?
No, it's not.
All right. Tutti Frutti.
The rap singers were talking to them, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But we got straight in time and stayed straight after that.
And has been straight ever since, huh?
Praise the Lord.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of stories that are in magazines and on television, on the radio, and since you're with us live on the telephone here, I wanted to ask you to get the honest opinion. Is it true that you threw $50,000 worth of jewelry in a river and decided to leave rock and roll one time?
I threw a lot of jewelry in the river in Australia. I don't know exactly how much the money was, but it was a lot of jewelry. Mm-hmm. I threw it. We was on a ferry,
Yeah.
Going across, and I threw it in the water.
All right, and that was kind of a departure from music for a while and into...
Well, what it did, I stopped and went to school at Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama.
Uh-huh.
And I went back to study because I didn't really know anything about business, and I went back to study a little bit.
Okay, and that worked out well for you. And
yes, it did. I
know that as a youngster, I followed your career as best I could, and I bought some albums that you did that were all gospel music, some of the best I ever heard.
Yes.
You still do any gospel?
Yeah, well, we do, on the stage, it's all rock and roll and country.
Right.
But we love gospel music.
And still love to sing it.
Yes, yes.
All right. And then a little later on, you became back in the music again. And
yeah, we came back. We needed the money, and we had to come back.
Well, it's the American way of life, I guess,
That's
isn't it? All right. Well, would you say that today the crowds are just as big as they were 40 years ago?
They're bigger.
Bigger crowds.
Bigger.
And the age group.
More people are going, and they love the old-time rock and roll.
Yeah, especially with...
I think that when they compare with the rap, they pick rock and roll,
Yeah, yeah.
So there's no comparison, really.
And really the audience is, I heard you say at one time, God's bouquet.
That's right. And it's just beautiful. We do all the people that love country music.
Yeah.
Our shows be packed with country music because really, country music today sound like 56 rock and roll.
Yeah.
And we be packed with country lovers and rock and roll lovers. They be all over the place. And thank God for them.
Yeah. Well, how long has it been since you've been to Tulsa?
Oh, my God. I haven't been to Tulsa in
20 years? Long time. But you've been here...
you used to have a thing, I think, a ballroom called the Big 10 or some years ago.
That's right. Big 10 ballrooms out on Apache Street.
Yes.
It's no longer there. I think the building might have survived, but I remember being there.
Just as big as that one?
Yeah, about the same.
Yes.
About the same.
Yes.
It's in a little different part of town, but in that old early era of construction and all of that.
Yeah. It's
So,
downtown.
Yeah, it's down in the old part of old downtown Tulsa.
Yes.
But it's a real historic place. Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys kind of put it on the map many years ago.
Good.
So you'll be in there with
Tell all the rock and roll lovers and the country music lovers to come out, and they will see history alive.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you what I tell all the listeners in Tulsa and have for many years. Little Richard is the man that nobody has ever out-rocked.
Thank you.
All right. Little Richard, thanks for visiting with us, buddy, and have a safe trip.